Never before had I feared humanity, the well-known allies of the Council. They advanced faster than any other species, becoming the great developers of the slip drive, and without them, the Council wouldn't exist. Though they had their peculiarities, like being the only known spacefaring creatures that consumed flesh, they were extremely advanced and kind. Yet they often warned us about their own nature, speaking of themselves as inherently evil, a belief echoed by their greatest religion. Despite their warnings, I believed in the Council's majority opinion that humanity was simply a humble species. However, they always refused to join the Council they helped to create. Back when we were just a few small, quarreling worlds with no species holding more than 5 planets, it was they who showed us our similarities, uniting us into the mighty Council we are today, with over 60 species now under its banner. Our herd stamped over all others, but humanity chose not to join us in war. Instead, they acted as mediators, convincing enemy herds to join us. When asked why they did this, they always responded that if we ever strayed, we could be stopped. But stopped from what? They never said. Humanity kept their secrets well. No other species had ever visited their home system, and they never accepted invitations to others. This was seen as a peculiar human custom, one of many. 200 galactic cycles ago, with their aid, we became herd brothers with our last neighbors and reached the peak of our strength. A cycle ago, we encountered a fleeing herd who spoke of a threat that had taken half the arm, destroying everything in its path. They requested our protection in exchange for information about this enemy, and we agreed. Upon reviewing their data, we realized the enemy was close to a Carrick colony. The Carrick requested a task force be sent for defense, and my people agreed, for we believed ourselves to be the greatest warriors in the Council, rulers of 5 systems before the Council's formation, when most ruled only 2. However, the battle was lost almost immediately. As we fled, the images of the atrocities committed by the enemy against the Carrick colony, citizens butchered, cities bombed, unspeakable acts against children, were horrifying. This was not what we called war. When we returned to the Council, our report was met with terror. If they had bested the Ronus, the greatest of our warriors, how could we hope to stop them? Then the human ambassador spoke with profound sadness. He lamented the lives lost and our inability to fight the oncoming threat. His voice carried the deepest anger I had ever heard at the enemy's actions. He recommended we retreat to humanity's home system, where they would protect the Council and promise to defeat this enemy. His voice filled with sorrow as he mentioned it was time for us to learn humanity's secret. We were baffled. How did the humans plan to stop the enemy? What secret did they speak of? And why, after hundreds of cycles, were they now inviting us to their home system? The ambassador refused to answer, saying all would be revealed once we arrived and that the human battle fleet was already deployed. So the Council traveled to humanity's home system, still fearful of the enemy but feeling somewhat safe, knowing humanity was handling the threat. Upon our arrival, we were awed by the system. Every major body of sufficient mass had something on it, moons, asteroids, and artificial stations were everywhere. Finally, we landed on the 3rd planet from their sun, a green and blue jewel with massive oceans covering over 80% of its surface and perfectly clean air. That night, we feasted, welcomed by the human leader with open arms. The night was filled with joy, but I couldn't shake the feeling of an aura of sadness and fear among the humans. I thought they might be worried about their battle fleet. As the night ended, the human leader said we would conduct our business the next day, and we rested. The next morning, the humans took us aboard a ship, and as we ascended, the human leader began to tell us a story. It was a story of a species so cruel that it murdered its own kind over petty differences, of creatures so unevolved that they felt nothing at the death of another. We were horrified but not surprised at the extent of human knowledge about our enemy until the leader simply shook his head and said this was not the enemy's history but their own. He continued, explaining how this species had advanced rapidly, driven solely by war. They fought the worst war in their history and then shortly after fought an even worse one, killing millions. But after the Second War, a small seed of wisdom grew, and wars, for the first time, became smaller. Over time, this species explored their system, slowly spreading out and colonizing it. Yet the terror of war faded from memory, and they clashed again, this time in their most devastating conflict. This war made even their 2 greatest wars look like mere skirmishes, claiming billions of lives and even destroying the inmost planet of their home system. Eventually, it destroyed their home world. As we began to descend to a vicious, radioactive greenhouse planet, the second in their system, I couldn't help but feel disturbed by the story and confused about its relevance to our enemy. Yet the human leader continued, explaining how shortly after this horrific war, this species encountered a few small empires of intelligent beings. These empires squabbled over who was strongest and who owned what, but never fought wars as they did. Though war and its terrors were fresh in their minds, this species feared future generations would forget and wanted a force that could and would crush them if they stepped out of line. But such a force couldn't fall victim to the same fate as they had, so they determined these small empires would become a peaceful union of equals, a council that would welcome all, and they would be its guardians. They would watch its horizons, ensuring no threat would topple it, guarding its people against their own weaknesses so it wouldn't collapse from within. And if it ever faced a threat that could destroy it utterly, then and only then would they reveal their true nature to the younger species, for only then would they have met a monster to match them. This story began to stir something in my memory as we stopped ascending. The human leader looked toward the windows, which had their sun shields still lowered. In the most solemn voice, he said we were on this species' home planet. They had promised to guide the council to greatness, and they believed they had succeeded. As the sun shields rose, revealing a statue of a human woman holding a tablet in one hand and a torch in the other, with what appeared to be the ruins of a once great city behind her, it was an impressive monument, yet I still didn't make the connection the human had placed before my eyes. A warning bell rang, enemy ships had entered the system. The ship ascended quickly, far faster than it had descended, and was soon back in space. We saw the enemy ships, where before, when fleeing the Carrick system, I had seen thousands, here I saw less than a dozen. I thought surely this meant the humans had been defeated and the enemy had split its forces. In that moment, I thought I felt fear, but true fear was yet to come. The human leader said simply, "A message comes for the council, for we have told them we are your servants. We have guided you and guarded you for generations. Now is the day you know the truth and face your destiny on your own." On the screen, the enemy appeared, and I braced for gloating, for a declaration of victory. How could the humans, as great and peaceful as they were, have bested this enemy? Yet when the enemy spoke, it chilled me to my core. We beg the council's forgiveness and protection. Your mercy is our only hope. The humans are destroying us, and we cannot stop them.